Hello, welcome to Story Time for Home Time. Welcome back. Welcome to part 2 of the story of the Orange Princess. What do you think's going to happen? Do you remember yesterday? Do you remember how Antonio went on a long journey riding on Pedro the donkey, searching for his sweet oranges? But a witch had put a spell on all the oranges in Spain, and none of them tasted nice anymore. So he went beyond Spain. He went through 3 other kingdoms, 3 other lands, asking all the kings, "Can you help me find a sweet orange?" And at last he found a king who said, "Yes, on the top of a high hill you will find an orange tree with a sweet orange." But he was scared to climb the hill because the orange tree was guarded by a terrible dragon. Should we find out what happens? You want to know? You sure? Okay. So when Antonio got to the top of the tree, there appeared a terrible dragon. And he was quite scared because he suddenly discovered that this was no ordinary dragon. Now, an ordinary dragon is scary enough, but this dragon was particularly scary because, it had 3 heads. There's 2 of them. Can I squeeze one more in? Yes, there we are. A 3-headed dragon. Well, Antonio drew the sword, but he thought, what am I going to do? If I chop off one head, surely the other 2 heads will still eat me. But then he remembered his mother's honey cakes. Now, I have to be honest with you, he didn't like them very much, so he had not eaten them. Now he took them out of the bag and he threw them on the ground. And the greedy dragon jumped upon the honey cakes and gobble ate them all up. Well, they were so gooey and sticky that now the dragon found all his teeth were stuck together with honey. So now Antonio drew his sword and chop, off came the 3 dragon heads. So now he had defeated the terrible 3-headed dragon. He was able to go right to the top of the hill, and there he saw the orange tree. Now, to his surprise, there was only 1 orange growing on it, which he thought was very odd. But nevertheless, he chopped it down. And suddenly he heard a voice cry out, and the voice said, "Oh, please, pour water on me, or I shall stay an orange forever." He looked around the hill, but there was nobody there. And the voice cried out again, "Please, give me water, or I shall be an orange for all time." The voice seemed to be coming from inside an orange. But that was just silly, said Antonio. "Oranges can't talk." So he lifted up the sword again, and the voice said, "Please, don't hurt me with your sword. Please, pour water on me. Otherwise I shall stay an orange forever." So he took the flask of water and he poured it over the orange. And the orange broke in half. And out stepped the Orange Princess. She had been kept inside this orange by magic, by the witch, for 16 years. And now she was a beautiful young princess. And, of course, Antonio fell in love with her straight away. And she fell in love with him. After all, he had rescued her. So he carried her down the hill. They rode on Pedro the donkey and went to see the king in that country. And the king was so pleased that the dragon had been chopped down that he gave Antonio his royal treasure. So now Antonio was a very rich young man. So, with his fortune and with the Orange Princess, jumped on the back of Pedro the donkey, and they set off for Spain through all the other kingdoms. It took a while, but when they arrived, they went straight to see his mother and father. And of course, they were very happy to see their boy alive and well, and very excited to meet the Princess of Spain. And then they went off to see the king and queen. Well, you can't begin to imagine how joyous the day was, how thrilled the king and queen were, how happy they were to see the Orange Princess alive and well after all these years. Oh, my goodness. Crying and hugging, tears of joy. And they could see that the princess had fallen in love with Antonio, And so they gave permission, and they got married that very day. And not a single cloud crossed the sky. It was blue and sunny, and everybody celebrated. And do you think they lived happily ever after? Actually, no, they didn't, because far, far away, once a year, that witch went to check on her orange tree. And the next time she went, what did she find? She found her pet dragon had been chopped down, and the orange had been cut open, and the princess set free. And the witch was jolly cross about it, I can tell you. So she decided she was going to take revenge. And she guessed that the orange princess probably would have returned to Spain, and so she set off for Spain herself. It took a while to get there, though, and by the time she arrived, the orange princess had not only married Antonio, but she had had a little baby boy all of her own. He was called Manuel. So when the witch arrived, she saw the orange princess sitting in the royal palace garden with the little baby on her knee. The witch made herself look like a sweet, old, kind lady, and she came into the garden, all smiles, and said, "Oh, what a lovely little baby. Oh, let me hold him for a while." And the princess said, "Yes, of course, here you are." She handed the baby to the witch. Now, you probably think the witch is going to steal this baby too, don't you? But you'd be quite wrong. She didn't. She held the baby just for a moment, and she said kind things. She gave the baby back. But when she gave the baby back, she took a pin out of her hair. Spanish ladies often tie their hair up with pins. And she took this pin, which had magic in it, and she stuck it into the arm of the orange princess. "Ow," said the princess, "that hurt." But then she started to get smaller and smaller and smaller, and she turned white and fluttery. She turned into a dove. It's a kind of bird, a bit like a pigeon, but all white. In Spain, a dove is called la paloma. I've always thought that's such a lovely word. Well, the dove, who was really the princess, flew away, and of course baby Manuel began to cry, because that was his mother. Quickly, the witch made herself look exactly like the orange princess. So when Antonio and the King and Queen of Spain came running out of the palace to see why the baby was crying, they couldn't understand it, because it looked to them as if he was sitting on his mother's knee. But he wasn't. He was sitting on the knee of the wicked witch. Now after that, the little baby boy Manuel, he never smiled. He cried all the time. Actually, he did smile occasionally, but only when he saw a certain white dove flying around in the sky. But of course he couldn't explain what had happened, because he was only a baby and he couldn't yet talk. Everyone was terribly worried about the baby. They couldn't understand why he had become so sad. And they thought the orange princess wasn't herself either. She'd become cold and strange too. Now eventually the baby learned to talk, of course, and the first thing he said was, "I want the dove, get me the dove." And the King of Spain said, "You don't want a dove. If you want a pet, you should have a nice animal like a puppy or a kitten. King Charles Spaniels, Persian kittens, or maybe a peacock in a cage of gold." But he didn't want those things, Manuel. He wanted the dove. And so Antonio, in the end, to make his little boy happy, he climbed up onto the roof of the palace. And he reached up into the sky, and he caught hold of the dove, and he saw the dove had a pin in its wing. And so he pulled out the pin, and suddenly the dove began to change. The dove got bigger and bigger, and turned orangey and fluttery and beautiful, and turned into his own wife, the real orange princess. And she told Antonio the whole true story. And he ran downstairs, and he said to the King and the Queen of Spain, "Quick, capture the other orange princess, because she is an impostor." And so they did capture her, and they threw her into the dungeon again, and the king said this time, "I will never let you out. You will stay there forever." But the witch was clever. Oh yes, she was very clever. She took another pin out of her hair, and she stuck it in her own arm, and she turned herself into a black crow. Here she comes. and now she was small enough to fly between the bars and escape. But she wasn't really that clever, because now she was a crow, she could never ever take the pin out of her wing, and so the wicked witch stayed a black crow forever. And do you think now they lived happily ever after? No, they didn't, because Antonio had still not had his sweet orange. The only orange he found turned into a princess, and he couldn't eat her. So the princess said to the farmers, "Bring me all your oranges, all of them." And they said, "But why, your majesty? They taste sour and bitter and horrible." "Never mind," she said, "bring them to me." They did, and you never saw such a parade, all the carts and donkeys travelling across Spain, bringing their oranges. And the orange princess put them into a big pan. She did, and she cooked them. She cooked them in the biggest pan you ever saw. She cooked them all night long, with lots and lots and lots, but lots of sugar. And in the morning, when her husband Antonio came down for breakfast, there it was, all this lovely, gorgeous, delicious, gooey, sweet, sticky, orangey stuff, which she put onto some toast for him. And he ate it for breakfast, and he said, "Oh my goodness, it tastes sweet, it tastes orangey, it tastes delicious. Oh, it's what I've always dreamed of. Oh, it's perfect. Oh, thank you, thank you. But how did you make it, and what is this stuff called?" And the orange princess said, "Well, I don't know, because I've only just invented it." Now the little boy, Manuel, was jumping up and down, crying out, "Mama made it, Mama made it." But because he couldn't talk properly, it sounded like marmalade, marmalade. And that is the true story of how marmalade came to be invented. And you think now they lived happily ever after? Yes, they did. Now, if you'd like a chance to win this picture, all you have to do is leave a comment on Facebook or Twitter, and I'll choose one person and send it to you in the post. And now it's time for my breakfast. So I'm going to have some freshly squeezed orange juice, and some toast and marmalade. People say the very best marmalade is still made from Spanish oranges. And I have some here, so let's just find out if that's true. Delicious. Thanks for watching. See you next time on Story Time for Home Time. Bye.